here? Let's see. Says I'm live. YouTube. Let's see if this is there. Okay. Yeah, looks like I'm all alone. My goodness. You gotta love it. Okay. So I lost everybody. Hey, Just a Ghost, Jacques. Yeah, four folks came back. Thanks. Good to see you all again. Sorry about that. Yeah, just dropped off. Crazy, crazy, crazy stuff. Don't support communists. Yeah. No, I think it's a cache issue with the video card here. Hey, Anton. I think it's a cache issue here, or something to do with my network card. So rebooting the laptop, I think, solved the problem last time, even though I changed the network settings. So I think that might do the trick. Anyway, yeah. So gosh, yeah. If we get cut off again, since this was an unscheduled one, now it's just kind of a straight voltage. Then I will. I'll just say catch you guys later. Back on the net. Number two. Yeah, it's crazy, crazy, crazy stuff. Anyway, so yeah, we were talking about. Oh yeah. So for us in the U.S., Labor Day is in September. It's the end of the summer season, the first week in September. But the beginning of the summer season is at the end of May, and that is Memorial Day. So we celebrate at the end of May what the rest of Europe and what Europe and the Western world celebrates in November. We celebrate at the end of May. In November, on Remembrance Day, we celebrate Veterans Day. And the May date for us is about those who've fallen in service to our nation, as it is in November for others. But in November, the date just is for veterans in general, whether they've fallen or not. So technically, November 11th is my day in the United States because I'm a veteran. So there you have it. I and I think about 16 million, 20 million others. Yep. And there's like your bud. Yep. Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, so that's the holidays are a little bit different for us than they are for European countries. And there you have it. Let's see. So I was talking about Giselle a few moments ago. Let me see if I can find something real quick on her. If anyone's interested in checking her out, she's really fantastic, as I said. And I don't even like country music. South Africa, South African singer. It says South African. She's actually Namibian, so that's funny. Um, yeah, here we go. See if I can get that up. If I can get this to come up real quick and see if you guys can see. Hang on. All right, so I'm going to try to add a source and see if it works here. And this will be another test, I guess, here to check things out. Do you know that surfers get arrested in South these days? Well, yeah, they're getting arrested in Florida, or not Florida, but in California too. So it's not just South Africa. Let's see if I can add a source, browser source. There we go. Add source, browser source. No, it doesn't. That's not it. Okay. No, that's not working. Cancel. Okay, so that's not the way to do it. So browser source is not the answer. How do I get that in here then? Anyway, I'll do a screen capture and then you guys can see it. Let me see. All right, so I'll do a screen capture and I'll bring the screen capture up so people can see what I'm talking about. Yeah, and that's our manager there, Johan, whose account's listed under. So it's going to come up here in just a second, folks. Give me a moment and I'll bring it up. Okay, a little bit, a few steps involved here in doing this. That's why you have to do it all ahead of time. But I wasn't planning on doing this. I was just testing things. I need to go to my download folder. There we go. Done. All right, so that's Giselle, folks. And this is from her song Sudvest, I think it is, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I'm wrong. Let me see. Let's see. Anyway, that's her. You can check her out. And she's very interesting. Yeah, that's Sudvest. Yep. So check that one out. It's got 96,000 views from 3 years ago this week from Johan Issel. So that's our manager. Anyway, give it a check. Beautiful scenery, fantastic video work that they did on this music video, and check her out. Hey, Polly, good to see you there. Yeah, check her out and see if you guys like it or not. And then hopefully, like I said, I'll get her manager on here at some point for one of the guest programs on a Saturday. That's the plan. We'll see how that goes. But that's Giselle Sudvest. She's got some other songs, and she will be releasing an album sometime here shortly. I don't know the date. I know that she is doing that because I talked to her manager. So that should be interesting too. Anyway, well, let's see. So I've explained what the background photo is. Now, no one's ever asked me about the little photograph in the upper right-hand corner. If anyone wants to know about that, I'll be happy to share that story with you too. I'm not very artistic. I don't have any talent when it comes to art. I can recognize good art and good drawings and such, but I don't have any talent myself. So I actually designed that logo, but I didn't create it. I had someone create it for me using Fiverr, which is a fantastic app that you can get that will allow you to hire someone to do graphic art for you. Good all day. Yep, Drian. Okay. Drian. So Drian, is that like short for Adrian? That's, it's like kind of like Liam is short for William. So I just wonder if that's the case. Anyway, yeah, so that logo. So let me slide her off to a smaller size there. Do tell. What do you want? Oh, let me tell about the logo. Okay, great, Anton. I'll tell you about that. So here's the deal. Let me move her over here because I want folks to still see her. I'm going to make this logo larger, and I'll have to fix it later. All right, so this is my logo. Actually, I'm too big now. So what happened was that as I was retiring from active service, I had a lot of folks who would contact me to do presentations and speeches or teach and things like that, present at conferences. And that happened a lot while I was still serving active duty and still does. So I realized that where exactly are you? I am in central Pennsylvania at the moment. I'm not living in Africa right now. I'm just retired from active service in October. My last assignment was as the director of African Studies at the U.S. Army War College. Okay. Yeah, so as I was about to retire, I realized that some of these speaking things I had to go through legal review because you have to see if there's a conflict of interest with the government or you're doing something that's opposed to the government or prescribing policy, things like that. So what I did was I'd go through legal review, and then of course many of these events they would pay me, but I couldn't accept payment since I was serving. Others, they would pay the travel, but I have to get review on that, whether it was okay. And some of the events I was going to speak or present at, I would go because it was part of my job for the government and they would pay for it. So it's very complicated. And I realized that the events that I went to out of the goodness of my heart, which I spent my own money for the travel expenses for flights and hotels and things like that, like last year not last year, but the year before in 2018, I went to Denver to speak at an energy conference about China in the energy sector in Africa. I was asked to come out there and speak about it, and I did, but I couldn't get that to pass legal review because it didn't contribute to my job on active service. So I went there at my own expense. Now, if I have my own business, the cost of the travel, the hotel, the lodging, all those things, and the rental car, that's something that can be written off, and I don't have income. So I figured that at a minimum, I would want to start my own consultancy after I retired so that if I do something like that again, that I can at least not have to worry about paying taxes on the money given to me that would pay for my travel because it's not income. It's used in furtherance of the business. So I decided to create a consultancy group, and I wanted to be clever because when I was a young officer, I created a consultancy group, I created a scenario for an exercise when I was deployed to Israel. And I thought I was being creative because I came up with a map of Israel and broke it into fictional countries, one of which I called Bulawayo. And I discovered that some American military officers have difficulty with words that have multiple syllables. And so, kind of like me, syllables. No, but I had this one major, I was a lieutenant, this major who just simply could not pronounce Bulawayo, no matter how many times he practiced or tried. And I realized that if I wanted my consultancy to get any traction, I'd have to be more clever than that. And so I decided to pick a word that's African, that's not difficult to pronounce, and that has some meaning for it. Since I have a consultancy and the idea is to provide advice and counsel and to meet with people, I wanted something that reflected that. Well, of course, Indaba is exactly that. Indaba is a council or a group of people getting together to discuss important issues. And while you have the Mining Indaba conference that takes place in South Africa every year and other uses of the term across Southern Africa, but particularly in South Africa, I had never seen the Indaba Africa Group. So I decided to create a consultancy called the Indaba Africa Group. So that's what I came up with. And the tagline there is my own creation, going far together across Africa. So the Indaba Africa Group is my consultancy, and our tagline is going far together across Africa. In other words, working together. Hey, Bradley, welcome. Gentle Inflatables, hi. Glad to see you guys tuned in. So yeah, so that is my logo. Now, above that, you'll see what look to be some folks who are kind of in a circle there, and the three colors. What I wanted was something that didn't look like a rainbow and have too many colors, but would be in color, because if I have an embossed card that's in color, it tends to grab people's attention more than simply a single color. So what I decided is I told the graphic artist, who was from Bangladesh, on Fiverr, that I wanted something that conveyed a meeting of people in which they all work together and they're sitting around. So the idea was they're working together, going in one path, and also at a table. And the three people represent peoples and other things in Africa. The three swipes after that is just a continuation of showing that the people meld and come together and form a group. So yeah, so anyway, so what you have is the three people there, and you see black and green and yellow, which are traditional African colors, and blue. And the blue can represent water, as folks in Botswana say rainfall, pula, but it also represents the white folks who are in Africa, the black for black folks, the green for others, and the yellow for other folks who are in Africa. So kind of not a direct representation of peoples, but kind of to show the idea that Africa is a rainbow. Despite the fact that it's overwhelmingly Bantu, it's nonetheless a rainbow of people. And then the three colors at the end, the traditional colors, it all comes together. Now, some might look at it and go, wait a second, that's the ANC colors. Well, that's not the intent. Anyway, so, but that's my logo that I had designed with my idea for a consultancy. So yeah, there you have it. So that's the answer, Anton. So it was you that asked the question. I think it was Anton. Anyway, so there's the, that's my logo. And I just keep that up in the upper corner because these videos, my personal channel is actually part of my consultancy. I'm doing this to promote Africa. And so I want to make sure I had a brand that was associated with it. So there you go, Indaba Africa Group. And that's, God bless it, this is not cooperating. There we go. And the refrigerator finally stopped making noise. I don't know if you all can hear that in the background, but that's really annoying. It drives me nuts. So there's Giselle. She's still on the screen, and there I am. Once again, for those just tuning in, the wallpaper, because some people asked about it, is a photo of the Mahalisberg on the way to Rustenburg, coming from Zeerust. And that would be looking out the right-hand side or the driver's side window as you approach the hill going through the pass to get down to Rustenburg. On the left-hand side is the exit for the Royal Bafokeng Stadium. And as you go about 2 kilometers further up the hill and down the other side, on the right-hand side is the Waterfalls Mall. On the left-hand side is the main route into Rustenburg. And of course, continuing straight on this route takes you to Pretoria. Yeah, so let's see what else. I just did mention the consultancy. Are you not getting it? Did it not get through? Anyway, let me know if it didn't get through. Not sure why it didn't. Anyway, yeah, so let me go over these questions again to make sure everybody's got it. Oh, how did I happen? Anton asked a question. How did I happen upon Ronaldo's channel? Well, interesting story. So I'm very active on LinkedIn, and I have been very active. I've been on LinkedIn since about 3 months after it was created. I'm kind of an early adopter of most things, and I joined it. But of course, I worked in intelligence and on active duty, so I had to be circumspect about what I said and did on there. I identified that I was in the military, and I mentioned some places I worked, but I didn't really use it for anything like social media. It was really just a means for me to connect to people that I hadn't been in touch with for a while or that I was trying to find. But over time, I noticed the utility of it, and then they started letting people post news and social posts on there. And when I saw that, at first I dismissed it. I'm like, no, this is a business community. What is this? This is not Facebook. But then one day I saw someone do a post, and they posted a news story, and the person offered their view or their analysis of what the news article was reporting on. And I was like, wow, that's some good utility. So I kind of put my toe in the water and I started writing articles on there. But I quickly discovered that no one's reading the articles on LinkedIn, almost no one. People are on there usually, unless there's up to a scam, they're on there, legitimate business people. They have spent a few minutes on there. They go on, they see their feed, there's an article that's there. And on the article, they'll jump, they'll read the comments, and they might go read the article. And so I realized that was the path. So I started commenting more and more. And then when I started commenting more, I started getting followers all of a sudden. I'd had about 500 followers at this point after being on there for well over a decade. And then when I was at the War College, because I was teaching at the War College, it's a postgraduate institution, I had academic freedom. So I was no longer serving an intelligence role, and I was no longer serving in a position where I had to be circumspect. I was allowed to express my opinions as long as I wasn't advocating policy for the US government, which I wasn't. So I started posting news articles on Africa, and I started writing my own articles about rebuilding the Armed Forces Liberia. And I started gaining more followers rather quickly, and people more connections, which spread my network, and especially for rugby, because I didn't know many people in the rugby business, but I was a huge rugby fan, so I wanted to get to know more people, club owners, players, officials. So I've connected to Jaco Piper, for instance, on there. I'm connected to Jean de Villiers on LinkedIn and others. So the idea was to spread. So I spread my connections in the security industry and in the energy industry, in rugby, and many other places. And then what happened was, as a consequence of being such a huge Springboks fan, I was promoting rugby here in the U.S. and the Springboks too, and the Blitzboks. Someone in South Africa said, "Hey, how come you never go on Ronaldo Ho's show?" And I'm like, "Who is Ronaldo Ho's?" No, it's a YouTube channel. I'm like, "Ugh, YouTube. I don't follow YouTube." And the person said, "No. It's a good. These guys he does a lot of good political discussion about South Africa, and you might find it interesting." So I kind of said yes, and kind of didn't really pay much attention and go there. But then a few months later, a few other people told me that, and finally, for some reason, I don't know if I went there on my own or just came up in my feed one day, or I got an email about it. Just a second. So what happened was I went there and I watched it, and I was out exercising and I'm listening to it. And it was one day when somebody was being a racist on there. And you know how Ronaldo is. He just, foot sick, if you're a racist, I don't need you as a subscriber. Get off my channel. Take that elsewhere. And I'm like, this guy is awesome. This is hilarious. This is good stuff. And to hear someone in South Africa say this publicly was very encouraging, because my experience in South Africa, when I hang out with black South Africans or white South Africans, you tend to get this, if I hang out with white South Africans, like, shh, you can't say that. Why can't I say that? You have free speech here. As long as I'm not using the K word or defaming somebody, I'm not in any trouble. But a lot of white South Africans in public were very reticent to talk about race. And when I was with black South Africans, it was the same thing. Shh, you can't say that. Why not? And so my experience in South Africa is that I will just say things. I like, you don't fix things if you don't talk about it. And if people are afraid to talk about race issues or discrimination in South Africa publicly, then how do you fix the problem? And so when I saw Ronaldo's approach to it, I liked that. And I had already had plans to create my own YouTube channel after retirement. And so as I got into retirement, I came back from Japan from the World Cup, I decided to get my channel started. And so I listened to Ronaldo more, and just to see how he was doing things, and watched other channels to see how people were doing things, to see what works on YouTube and what doesn't work on YouTube, and what resonates with people and what doesn't. And that's kind of how I got to Ronaldo. And then what happened, hey, Tony Lynn, welcome aboard. No, don't worry about the notification. This started out just as a test. I was testing tomorrow's guest speaker, and we went on, and suddenly we had 7 or 8 people, and they asked me to continue. So it just became kind of a straight voltage live stream. And then, of course, I need to reboot my computer again because it got disconnected. My Wi-Fi dropped off. And I came back, and now we've got even more people than we had before. So now it's turned into a live stream, which was unintentional. But, hey, there you go, straight voltage. So I started following Ronaldo. And then for those of you who are on there, I didn't know how YouTube was really working, because even though I've had a channel since 2006, I rarely used it. So the chat function wasn't there when I first started using YouTube. I don't recall it. And then the @ symbol, so you can actually send a message to someone. Anyway, so one day, it was on a Saturday about a month ago, over a month ago, Ronaldo was taking calls on an impromptu live stream. So he was limiting people to about 3 or 4 minutes. And I said, well, let me call in. So I installed the Zoom app real quick because he was using Zoom. And I called in. He took my call because nobody was calling. If 2 or 3 people called in, no one had. So I said, I called in. And we chatted. For those of you who remember that call, if you were actually there, I enjoyed that a lot. He had a lot of fun with it. And people were in the chat window saying, we should have you come back. And I don't think Ronaldo saw that. We talked for over 20 minutes that day and filled up the last half hour of his program. And then I was back in, and Paulie, I think, is the person who said, "Hey, you need to go on Ronaldo's program, be a guest on there." I said, "Well, after that phone call, I had written an email to Ronaldo, and because I'd written a few emails, but he'd responded once or twice. But I know the guy's busy; he's got a lot going on. And I've been in those shoes before, where I've had 1,500 emails a day, and you can't see them all; you miss some of them. So I didn't take offense, busy guy. But he hadn't responded to my email. But I sent him an email after the call, thanking him for taking the phone call and telling him that I really enjoyed it. And if you ever want to talk about Africa, or my experiences in Africa, or have me on as a guest, and this was early in the lockdown, I said I'd be happy to come on. And so what happened was he he didn't answer my email. Then I called in and had that conversation. Or so I had to call in. Then I sent an email. And then the next time I went on a stream a day or two later, a couple days later, Paulie, I think, was on there. And Paulie said, "You should be on there." I said, "Well, I've sent him an email. I haven't heard from him. It's been about a week now." I said, "If you guys would like me to be on his program, then you need to write to him and say, hey, we'd like to get the Colonel on there." And I think Paulie and a few other people wrote to Ronaldo, and he said, "Yeah, I'd like to have him on." So the next time I came on, I was in the chat, and he saw me there, and Ronaldo said, "Yeah," because people were saying, "You need to have the Colonel on." We'll get the Colonel on. And then we did a show. We did a show, and I really enjoyed it. That was a fantastic time. And during the course of it, thank you all, those of you who were there and who said, "Hey, the Colonel should be on more often." And Ronaldo's like, "Yeah, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of my Sunday shows and I'll devote it to, we'll do an hour show with you once a month." And so that was the outcome of it. Now we haven't done a show, and he's been busy, and I haven't been bugging him, but we should have a show coming up sometime soon. I have been pressuring because I'm actually participating in a debate with the Center for Strategic and International Studies, CSIS, which is a DC-based think tank that's on Monday, this coming Monday, the 4th of May. This is a debate about human rights and counterterrorism operations. And so I've been placed on there as the not in favor of human rights. That's not really the position. There's a pro and con. And then you'll hear my true views at the end of it, but I have to defend that position, and the other side has to defend their position. So this was supposed to be in Minneapolis, and they were going to pay to take me up there, but COVID-19 came along, and so it was delayed, and now we're doing it by stream. So all of you in South Africa will be able to attend. You just tune in, go to the CSIS website, the Center for Strategic and International Studies in DC, and you'll find this listed for May 4th, upcoming discussion. And please feel free to tune in. It should be an interesting period. We have four persons, two pro, two con, each gets 7 minutes in their rebuttal, and then they'll ask questions of us, and at the end we'll give our true feelings. Shouldn't last more than an hour, but we'll see how it goes. So yeah, that should be interesting. Yeah, anyway, so there you have that. Yeah, so that's on Monday. So I was not in a rush to, and then Saturday, of course, as I mentioned, I have my first scheduled tomorrow weekly live stream with a guest. And tomorrow's live stream, unlike this straight voltage stream, this is just a guest coming on specifically scheduled. And this will be a gentleman from Ghana who's a small scale farmer. He's got about 120 farmers or farm workers that work for him. And he's a young guy, started out, and he's been doing business, and he's growing market crops. And yeah, so it should be interesting. So that's the first one. And so this weekend I'm kind of busy. If Ronaldo wants to do a show on Sunday, I'm up for it. I can do it. So, but on Saturday I'm doing my live stream. On Sunday I'm recording my podcast for my All Things Africa podcast, which started last week. And then on Monday I have the debate. So in between there, I'll be preparing for the debate. And I don't usually rehearse, but since this will be a stream, I'm going to rehearse my notes, which is unusual for me. I usually just do it ad lib based on what's in my head and what I know. I do prepare, I research for things, but my view is that if you have to read a script or a speech, then you're just the better dressed chimpanzee, and we really don't need you. A cogent, intelligent person who actually knows the subject they're talking about should be able to, with a minimum of notes, a couple little bullet cards, and make sure you don't miss a point, to talk about any subject that they're supposedly a subject matter expert in. And that's kind of my approach to things. The only time I've ever used written speeches is when I was in Liberia and I was on television, and we wanted to make sure that the right message got out. So I would not read my scripts, but I would write a script. And the real reason I wrote the script wasn't because I was reading it or I needed it for the speech, but because I quickly discovered in Liberia that if you want your message to get out, you have to hand the journalist a copy of your remarks. And so I started writing my speeches. And when I say speeches, I did about 65, 75 of these, maybe 100 of these, as we had all kinds of ceremonies, events taking place in Liberia, school openings that we refurbished, clinics, graduations, for all the different courses we ran for the military. So I did this a lot. And what happened was I would write the notes and then give them to the media, and then the things that we wanted to appear in the newspaper actually appeared, not what they mistakenly overheard or misunderstood in the conversation. So, but aside from that, I've not really ever written notes. The other exception being when I was in Niger, I was interviewed in French frequently. And while my French was good, it was always smart to have a few notes down to make sure that you remembered what the correct word was in French if it was one you didn't use often. So when I was interviewed in French, I would do that sometimes. Yeah, let's see. Ronaldo will be live in 29 minutes. Yeah, I will definitely be off before Ronaldo comes on to give people a chance to get on there. Let me see. There's been some comments while I was prattling on here. Let me see. Over here to the side, Chris White, this is from Paulie, do you foresee Ndaba doing any military security force consultation in Africa? Oh, no, absolutely, Paulie. That is the intent. My goal, of course, is to get American business interested in Africa. And if I make some money doing that, all the better. If I get to travel, that's all the better. But really, I'm hoping to make sure that people know that Africa exists and it's a huge opportunity for us and for Africans. But yeah, security work, absolutely. I've already been offered several things in Africa. I was offered an opportunity to go write the national security strategy for a small West African country, and I'll leave it at that. But I was still serving and couldn't do it then. I've also been asked to go to Uganda to train peacekeepers. But the problem with that is that the job they offered me, while it was lucrative, was simply a job that used to work for me. When I was in Uganda, the people that do that job were working for me. So I would be going back to Uganda making a lot of money, more than I would on active duty as a trainer, but I have bigger things in mind. I have a lot of leadership experience and I want to lead something. Part of the reason for the consultancy as well. So absolutely, Paulie, I do intend to do security and military consulting in Africa. Absolutely. Now, will I be executive outcomes or Blackwater? No, I won't be having any operational capacity from that standpoint. It'll be advice and consulting and from experience. I've done so many things in uniform that I have background in a lot of different areas. So that's the intent. Also, if it goes well, at some point, I'll probably bring other people in. I've already got a couple of Nigerians and Kenyans that have asked to join my consultancy. But when I'm not booking revenue, I'm not going to be doing that. So anyway, let's see what else. Ice says, sorry, I must have missed when I went to go make coffee. I was wondering if it's like, political and economic consulting, all of that, everything. So, I've written articles. So, for instance, something people don't really think about, because I'm a genealogist and I do family history research, I have about 26,000 people in my family history that I've researched. So, because I do that professionally as well. One of the things I did is a couple years ago for the Africa Business Portal, a site that I'm an advisor on. I wrote an article because I was waiting for a hockey game and I was bored and the topic seemed interesting. So I wrote an article about privacy concerns. And I talked specifically about how these genetic companies had gone to West Africa and taken volunteers to collect DNA samples to start getting a baseline for West African DNA. So it could be included in genetic databases. And I talked about the dangers and the hazards, the protection of that, and people's rights to that, and that sort of thing. All of that plays a role. Intellectual property, personal privacy, cybersecurity, and all of those things. And then, so I wrote an article about that. So that's the kind of consulting I could do that as well too. So, yep. Let's see what else we got here. So I recall that was great. Yeah, thanks, Bradley. I enjoyed the stream. I think a lot of people really did. It was a lot of fun that day. How long was that stream? Well, the first stream when I did the program, that's 3 weeks ago now. So I guess we're due to do the. By the way, the segment, as long as Ronaldo goes with, I think he liked it. Is I suggested we call it All Things Africa with the Colonel, and that would be a Sunday program. So let me see. Anton says 6-7 weeks. I don't think it was that long ago. That was when I first called in. Then it is show day 6. Yeah. Oh, thanks. Yeah, probably it was day 16 of the lockdown. That's right. Yep, day 16. Now, I don't know about you guys, but here in the U.S., when I play the stream back, it's choppy, and a lot of my words are cut off. I don't know if that's a function of the compression that YouTube does on it because it was a feed. I'm not sure, but I understand that when I was on, most of the time, folks could hear me clearly. But when I rewatch it, because obviously I couldn't watch at the time, but when I rewatch it, it seems choppy, so I'm not so sure what the issue is there. Anyway, any chance you can broadcast it afterwards? Tony Lynn, if you go to my channel and look on my channel, you'll see under South Africa, there's a connection to that stream from the 16th day of the lockdown. I put a link in there under my South Africa playlist, which I call the Boca playlist. So look there for South Africa Boca playlist, and you'll see Ronaldo's stream on there is one of my top 5 videos listed to draw people's attention to that. So you'll be able to stream it from there if you can't find it on Ronaldo's page. But it is day 16 of the lockdown, as Paulie said. So, yep, let's see what else. So Ronaldo will be going live in about 21 minutes. So let's see. We've got enough of those script readers on government. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't, it's like Barack Obama is such a brilliant communicator. No, he's not. The guy reads a script. He's an evening news broadcaster, just the better dressed guy doing the job. So I always tell people in uniform, I said, you have to add value. Otherwise, you're just the better dressed chimpanzee. You just look a little better than the next guy. And that's always where I've come from and how I've approached things. And if I don't know the stuff, then I shouldn't be up there talking about it. Now, obviously, I'll give a break to presidents and prime ministers because the political angle of things, so it's okay for them to read from scripts, but not all the time. You ought to be able to talk about things authoritatively from time to time. And Trump, whether he's talking authoritatively or not, talks from the hip all the time. Prepared remarks are a rarity with him, although he started doing it on the campaign trail this year. Let's see what else we got here. Does the average American know anything about South Africa or Africa? Anton is asking a question. No, they don't. And it's understandable, Anton, but think about it. So for most of our existence, the United States was a far off place, separated by two oceans. And we lived on a continent where the majority of the continent geographically, everyone could speak, with the exception of Quebec, everyone spoke English. Well, not everyone, we have Native American languages, but 99% of people spoke English. And so there was no need to learn other languages because most Americans never left the country and few foreigners came here for a long time, except immigrants who were eager to learn the language so that they could fit in and assimilate. So that's part of it. But the other piece of this too is that most Americans don't travel the world, and our news doesn't cover the world unless it's bad news. Most Americans probably never heard of Ethiopia until We Are the World and people were starving in a famine in 1985, and suddenly it was world news. No, but it's not unique, Anton. It's not unique to the United States. I can go to South Africa and I can find all kinds of South Africans who know nothing about the rest of Africa, and many who don't even know much about their own country's history, at least the real history, or even places nearby. The same thing in Europe. So the Europeans are always looking down their nose at Americans, calling us geographically ignorant or stupid and poorly educated. If you look at educational outcomes, they're not that different between Europe and the United States. But when it comes to geography, I can tell you firsthand. I've been all over Europe, and I remember sitting in a Gasthaus in Germany, down on near Garmisch, and I was having a conversation with a young man who had just graduated high school, was going off to university. So educated, talented, one would expect. He's going to university, and we were talking about about a village called Fronten, which was only about 16 kilometers away. Now, to get there, you had to drive in a roundabout fashion through Austria for a few kilometers to come back because the mountains blocked it. Otherwise, you had to go 100 kilometers around. But it's only 16 kilometers away. And I was talking to him, and someone was joined me. This was at a conference we were at, so we're sitting at the bar having a Weizen. And I'm talking about this town, which is a town of about 50,000, 16 kilometers away. And this kid who grew up in this town, which has about 3,000 people in it, never heard of it. And I thought maybe he misunderstood my pronunciation. No, I spelled it for him. He goes, "Where's that at?" I said, "That's 16 kilometers away." My point is that geographic ignorance is not something unique to Americans. It's the world over. It's amazing how little people know about geography. It's also, for me, it's always been fascinating that people get lost. I'm fortunately a great sense of direction. Even in the midst of the first Gulf War, when I was dropped in the middle of the desert and there wasn't a terrain feature within eyesight, no elevation change for miles and miles around. The ground looked like the surface of Mars, kind of a reddish pink color soil, and the biggest thing you could see was a pebble. It was about that big. So there was nothing really to go off of, especially during the day. But nonetheless, I never got lost, not once. I got a great sense of direction. I'm not boasting, I'm just saying. So for me, when I see people who are driving in cars with signage and directional navigational things before GPS and they get lost, I'm like, how do people get lost? It's something I don't understand. For me, geography is a natural thing. It's something I absolutely love. So the people don't know the capital of Iceland is Reykjavik. It just astounds me. But that's the world over. Almost nobody does. I was talking about a trip of mine to Iceland and the Faroe Islands the other day, and somebody said, "The Faroe Islands, where's that at?" And I said, "Well, that's in the North Atlantic." And I didn't say you don't know this because I expect that most people wouldn't know it, but I know it. Anyway, so let's see what else. How have you been? General Flavors, how have I been? Well, my back. I injured my back mowing the lawn and lifting bags of soil with my back, not my legs. it didn't hurt at the time, but yesterday I got up and so I'm having a little bit of difficulty standing today. So bit sore, but anyway, it'll work out. This is what happens when you don't do sit-ups regularly and work those lower back muscles. If you're tall like I am, you wind up straining them if they're not good, well toned. And I had been working out every day since January religiously, with very few exceptions, and even during the lockdown. But I get bored of doing the same route, and normally I travel different places to get my exercise. But now that I can't do that, I'm going through the same place in the local park here, which has got a loop, which is about 1,000 steps, so 800 meters or so, and then through this neighborhood here. But the kids are riding around their bicycles, and I find it annoying and distracting, so I walk over to the park, and it gets old. So this past week, I had slowed my pace down, wasn't working out probably about half as much as normal or less, and it shows. My lower back, I did too much mowing the lawn, 2.5 hours of yard work, mowing the lawn, putting in topsoil because my yard's an absolute disaster, and I hurt my back. But I'll survive. Life could be worse. It'll be better in a few days. I just have to adjust my behavior and deal with the pain. Let's see. So that's how I'm doing, general inflatables. And I had a headache yesterday. I couldn't get rid of it. It wasn't dehydration. And no, it's not COVID-19. It's not COVID-19. I do not have the Wuhan coronavirus. Yeah, no, I don't have the headache any longer. Let's see. ICE says it's very interesting. You reference your business. I'd love to do business South Africa and Africa, but first looking to minimize my personal risk before I start the ball rolling. Well, ICE, that's one of the things I'll offer in my consultancy is advice on that, how I'll go about that, and also to make people aware of the challenges and the risk. So I've written an article which is on LinkedIn, and maybe I'll talk about that article in which I talked about the African Continental Free Trade Agreement and the shortcomings of it and the risk for it. So also for those of you who've not seen it, you can look this up on YouTube. Look up the Trade with Africa Summit, TWA, Trade with Africa, and put my surname, Wyatt, or Chris Wyatt, should do it. And you'll be able to find about a 45-minute presentation I gave in Chicago at McDonald's University in August of 2019, in which I talked about the challenges of investing in Africa and some of the pitfalls. So you can check that out. There's some free consultancy right there for you, ICE. But aside from that, that's exactly the sort of service I can provide to people who are looking for it, is to talk to them about, because I've done everything. Well, Paulie, what industry are you in? Well, I'm a consultant. I'm in that industry, and it's so I can provide consultancy when it comes to defense, security, national security, policy, economics, macroeconomics, the energy industry, alternative energy, all sorts of things. I was actually contacted by a major sports franchise, a rugby franchise owner, who asked me if I would be interested in doing some work and working with a league that might be created somewhere in the world. And I will leave it at that. Okay, I don't want to poison that well, but so I was being offered an opportunity to provide some consultancy and potentially a role for this league. This was before COVID-19. I don't know if it's going to happen now because sports franchises are folding up all over the planet. So we'll see what happens. General Inflatables would love to visit the States and learn the history. Well, yeah, the kind of cool thing about the internet and YouTube and channels and things available through the internet these days is you can learn a lot about the States without even visiting it. But yeah, you should come over if you get a chance. It is very expensive for South Africa. Well, now especially 20 to 1 for the Rand nearly. By the time it's over, it'll be 40 to 1. And then I'll be buying mansions in the High Veld or somewhere in Cape Town. Let's see. Paulie said he went in 2014-15 at 9 and 12 to the dollar. Now it's basically impossible at 19 to $20. Yeah, this makes travel for most South Africans off limits. You can't afford it. When I went to Iceland and the Faroe Islands in 2004, 2004, I think it was. When I went there in 2004, the Icelandic kroner was still was very strong. And so it cost me a fortune. The cheapest hotels were over $100 a night for a single person, really expensive. And then the Icelandic currency collapsed because of their savings scandal that was taking place with their banks. And I could have gone then, and it would have gone for 1/4 of the price, but I was busy and I was in Africa and I couldn't do it. So let's see. So yeah, currency does make a difference. Bradley says, we're about 13 minutes away from the top of the hour, so I'll go for a bit longer, but maybe not forever. Bradley says, General Fables, we know that issue, wanting to look at moving over there. Well, yeah, Bradley, it's a question of perspective. The United States is expensive, but it's not expensive. So for instance, If you made $100,000 and you live in the area that I live in, you'd live pretty well. If you made $100,000, you lived in New York, Miami, San Francisco, you would not be doing well. Rents are $5,000 a month for a small two-bedroom apartment in Midtown Manhattan. Yeah, so that's $60,000 a year just for your rent. And of course, you have to pay taxes. And New York takes a percentage. The federal government takes a percentage. New York City takes a percentage. So by the time you're done, you're panhandling on the street. And that's one reason why New York, so many people live in Queens and the other boroughs because they simply cannot afford to live in Manhattan. And there's also not simply not enough housing for 9 million people in Manhattan. But a lot of people, if they have a choice, they would prefer to live in Manhattan. It's just very expensive. So when it comes to expensive, it's a question of where you're at and how you do things. I could live in this country and survive on $30,000 a year. Many people do. It wouldn't be luxurious, but I'd survive. But I'd much rather make 100, 200 or more a year so that I can do what I want to do. And one of the advantages of living where I live at is the cost of living is significantly lower than it is just 2 hours away in major metropolitan areas like DC, Baltimore, Philadelphia, or 3 hours away in New York. And I have access to all those places. And I don't even have to live that far away. You can live an hour or an hour and a half away from those places and live in a reasonably inexpensive area. Now, some things are fixed. The cost is high for everything, but housing is one of the biggest outlays from people's budgets, and you can find that inexpensive outside major metropolitan areas. So let's see. Well, thank you, Jennifer Labels. Hope you feel better. Yeah, no, well, when you say take it easy, yes, but I can't sit around because then all the muscles atrophy and I need to exercise. What I have to do is lift with my knees, not with my back. And it hurts a bit, but I can do it. But literally, if I try to lift with my lower back like I normally do, rather than like most people do, it's almost paralyzing. This happens to me periodically when I don't exercise properly or I do something I shouldn't be doing. But I don't have back problems. It's just I've injured it or sprained it. So let's see. Chris, half our house is solar. Do you have solar? No, I do not have solar, and that's because number one, I'm not a fan of subsidies, and now that's not to say that I wouldn't take advantage of them if I did it, but my motivation for getting solar will not be that the government is offering a tax break, which is disadvantaging other forms of energy simply because they have an agenda to get me to buy solar. Hang on, Starbucks time before we go off air here. So I've never bought solar, but the real reason, that's part of it, but the real reason is it's outrageously expensive. So to put solar panels on my house, it would cost 40,000 US dollars. That's right, $40,000. That's absolutely insane. And they're only good for a period of time, 10, 15 years, 20 years, most you got to replace them, not to mention the maintenance on them. When they break, who do I call? I've got to maintain that. And yeah, the return on investment is not good. It takes at least 10 years to get your money back, and I don't know what I'll be doing in 10 years or where I'll be. So while I am a fan of solar photovoltaic, particularly since now you can actually get some energy out of it. When it was 15%, 18%, it was ludicrous. It would be ideal if it was 30 to 40%. We're not there, but we're up over 20% in many cases now, and so it makes it effective. In fact, one thing I do is invest in solar. There's a solar program in South Africa from a company called Sun Exchange. You can look them up, Sun Exchange. I think it's sunexchange.co.za or maybe it's sunexchange.com. But look up Sun Exchange. It's a company in South Africa that installs solar systems because Eskom is cock. They're useless. And so in order for people to save money over the high rates that Eskom charges and get reliable, consistent power, this company installs solar projects, but it does essentially crowdfunding. So investors sign up for an account. There's no charge. You go in, they announce a project, you look at it, you see how many kilowatts it's supposed to produce, what they're going to pay, what's projected over the 20 years. They take care of all the maintenance and all the fees and processing. And you can be paid in Bitcoin, no thank you, or you can be paid in Rand. Anyway, so Sun Exchange, check it out for those of you interested in doing something to help South Africa's economy and help South Africans overcome state-owned enterprise paralysis, also known as Eskom, and load shedding. So we're about 8 minutes away here, so let me see if I can answer a few more questions then. Lots of investment opportunities in Africa for Americans, but they need locals or people like you who have vast experience. Yeah, that's the bottom line. You need people who understand and can equate the risk versus reward. So, for instance, when people talk about investing in Africa, there's a couple things come to mind very quickly that they don't think about. One of them is that they don't think about the cost, the true cost. So, for instance, a lot of people are like, why are companies investing in South Africa? Well, it's not just EWC and BEE and all this other nonsense. It's also the fact that South Africa's workforce is inefficient. Productivity is low in South Africa. This is why when the multi-fiber agreement expired in 2005, that most of the textile production and the jobs that were in South Africa, Lesotho and Swaziland, Botswana, disappeared and went back to Taiwan and to China because they have higher productivity. And without the artificial advantage that was given by producing the textiles in Africa and shipping them to the West and getting around the quotas that China couldn't get around when it wasn't in the World Trade Organization, now they didn't have the quotas, and now they can produce the things far more effectively with more productive workforce back in Asia. And so Southern Africa lost hundreds of thousands of jobs. Lesotho alone lost, 75,000 textile jobs in 3 months. It's insane. Country of 2 million people, 75,000 jobs, devastating. Yeah, so that's one thing, and most people don't realize it. They don't realize the cost of productivity loss. Another thing that a lot of folks don't realize that when they go into business in Africa, or they don't think about it, is that the other hidden cost. So if I go into business, say in the Central African Republic, and I'm working with a local provider, supplier, what happens when those folks don't provide supplies? Who do I sue? Is there a court that I can go to? Do I have a right of redress? Do I have any rights as a business? And these are some of the risks that investors need to know about. And so there's some of the things I can talk about and help people out when it comes to consulting. Looks like we're losing people now. We're down to 9, so I'm gonna go a little bit longer. Then I'm gonna drop off because I too want to jump onto Ronaldo's stream. So yeah, let's see what else. Oh, Gentleman with Label says flights for 5 of us is a lot. Yeah, flights can be a lot, but there are ways to get cheaper flights. You just have to pick the right time if you're flexible. I mean, if you have work, it's not always easy, but yeah, it is. It can be expensive, but sometimes booking it well in advance, you can get a good deal. But we'll see what happens. Part of the problem with the U.S. and South Africa is that there's not a lot of options. Now, the other option is to look at flying through Europe, and sometimes it's even cheaper than going from the U.S. Just have to take a look at it. Ice says, have you seen the new documentary that Michael Moore made about renewable energy? I unfortunately know too many engineers in various sectors around. Yeah. The problem with renewables is that people want to come up with everything under the sun, Tesla and their battery-powered stuff, but think of all the toxic minerals that go into making those batteries and then disposing of them and all the impacts of that, draining power from the grid, which is mostly coal-fired power plants in much of the world even today. There's a lot of drawbacks to the renewables and alternatives. There are advantages to it, but none of them deliver the consistent, reliable, high energy output that we get from fossil fuels. There's just no way around it. As I was mentioning, solar photovoltaic was so unreliable for so long because you were only getting about 18% of the energy back. That's what you're actually getting out of it. And then from gasoline, petrol, and internal combustion engine, it's something like 34, 38%, something like that. So much more effective and gives you much more reliable source of energy. So fossil fuels are not going away. We're down to about 4 minutes. Okay, let me see real quick. Paulie says, General Flabels here in Cape Town. Oh, nuclear power. Yeah, well, you've got the Coburg facility near Cape Town. I'm going to shut off in just a second. So unions, labor court, retrenchment. Yeah, lots of local cost. Just broke on the news now. What a joke these unions are for SSA. Okay, folks, it is 9:56 my time, so that must be 15:56 in South Africa. So I've been on for about 48 minutes after having gotten cut off. So this has been a Stray Voltage live stream. Thank you all for joining me. I want to drop off now so that those who want to go watch Ronaldo can do it, and I'll pop on Ronaldo's program for a few minutes too. Anyway, thank you for joining in. This was just a test to make sure it was working, and it did work, but now it's crapped out. But the key thing was making sure that the Skype was working so people could see it because I couldn't get it to work before. But I've got that working. I'll reboot everything, and hopefully folks can tune in tomorrow for the conversation with the gentleman from Ghana to talk about agriculture in Africa, which a lot of that will apply to South Africa as well, particularly small-scale farmers. Anyway, so I'm going to drop off now. Thank you all for joining me, and I will see you on Ronaldo's stream, those who join me there. All right, folks, take care. We'll catch you later. Bye-bye.